This is Mike Messier, and this is my Wrestlemania response. I thought it was a great show. I thought it was an A show. I thought that it's probably, to me, it was a quality show. I think that every match, for the most part, for the most part, but I'd say from my memory, pretty much every match delivered. A lot of matches, how many big matches can you have on a show? 10 or 12 matches, it seemed like. And every match, from AJ Styles and Shane McMahon opening, I think it was solid. I think Shane did better than you'd expect. I was looking forward to the Jericho Kevin Owens match, and I think that delivered quite well. A favorite WrestleMania moment of mine is when Kevin Owens used one little tip of his finger to touch the bottom rope to break a pin. I've been watching wrestling for a long time. I've never seen a guy use one finger to break a pin attempt. I don't really have for me, it's really just a good Mania. I think they did production-wise. The set was awesome. I don't really get hung up about sets usually, but for WrestleMania, if they're going to go through the trouble, and they did go through the trouble of putting together a really cool roller coaster, ultimate thrill ride type set, then I think they delivered. I think it was nice. The special effects in the Bray Wyatt match against Randy Orton with the projection of maggots and so forth, images, never been done before, as far as I know, to actually have a whole ring mat, conveyed with messages. It doesn't make too much sense that he lost the match, but what are you going to do? Randy overcame those mind games as the story they're presenting. I would really say that was a good show. I think the Undertaker match was not a great way to end, in the sense that Undertaker's age, look, he's a 50-year-old something guy, it's catching up to him, and this was his last match. So, in a sense, it's good that he is stumbling around. I'm not making fun of the guy. He's obviously a legend, but if he's stumbling around a bit, having trouble with hip injuries or just accumulation of injuries over 30 years of wrestling, then then that kind of lends itself that this is your last match, and retire and do the whole, situation with taking off the hat and the gloves. I really didn't have a problem with anything. I think it was a good, consistent show, solid, and not even just solid, like really good. So I would give it an A. I'd say that for me, this was probably a WrestleMania that delivered upon its potential. A lot of great players involved. Chris Jericho, he's still 46 years old and still doing some great moves. He looks better. I'm a big Kevin Owens fan, but Jericho's in better shape than Owens. The showgirls, Beth Berkeley style trunks on Jericho is a little weird at this point, but that's part of his fun. As a performer, whatever. I think that one thing I would say is that for me, it's more like I'll be critical of other fans. I think fans that watch a show like this and then say, "Oh, it was okay," or it had its moments. I don't know what the hell they're expecting at this point. The original WrestleMania, if you go back in time, is really not a great series of matches. If you look at the original WrestleMania, you have the big stars of that era. Greg Valentine, but he had a match that was a disqualification against the Junkyard Dog, or Tito Santana, basically, I believe, open WrestleMania, beating Mr. X, who was a preliminary wrestler. I think that was either Danny Davis or Playboy Buddy Rose under a mask. So, if you look at the history of WrestleMania, the way that the actual matches have come, you're getting more matches, you're getting better matches, more thought out, bigger payouts, whatever you want to call it. I just think that pound for pound, match for match, this was a good Mania, fucking good Mania. And it's almost, to me, it's just like, can we just be happy for a goddamn change? Like, they did a good show. They had some really good matches. I don't think there was ever a dud on the show. If you want surprises, you get the Hardy Boys. And I'm not the biggest Hardy Boy fan in the world, but it's impressive that they were in that WrestleMania match 2001. That everyone loves WrestleMania 17, and here they are all these years later coming back at WrestleMania 33 and winning the championship. So, if anything, Enzo and Cass kind of got left out. I would assume, but I don't know, that Enzo and Cass were scheduled to win the belts last night at Mania in that match, and because they didn't, they're kind of pushed back at the rung, and now they have to wait their turn, or maybe they'll go to SmackDown and get those belts. But Enzo and Cass are so over and so entertaining, and I didn't like Enzo and Cass. I'm not a big NXT fan, and so I didn't really get it when they came into the WWE a year ago. Tonight, basically, this is the Monday after WrestleMania, but I am impressed by Enzo and Cass, especially Cass, Enzo, especially whatever the fuck their names, the little one, the shorter one, whatever. Enzo, I think he's great. Enzo Amore. I think he's a guy you could really push even as a singles guy. No offense to Cass, but I just think that Enzo's really entertaining. He's good at what he does. He's great on the stick, and he can sell. You can make, in that Ricky Morton school of make a guy look good who's beating you up. Pedro Morales, if you look at old school wrestling tapes, Pedro Morales made you feel, or made the fans at that time feel, that he was really getting his ass kicked. And then you had an emotional investment. And I think one thing people don't talk about with Enzo is that he is good on the stick. Everyone says that. He's good on the mic, but I think he's good at selling and making it seem like he's getting hurt, which I think is important. And then he's got, his buddy. So overall, I think it was an A show. I don't think, I think people that are criticizing WrestleMania, I'm not a guy who's going to love everything that WWE does. In fact, I would prefer if there was another company, another number 2 company doing anything, and Impact, I think, is always kind of floating around trying. Ring of Honor is solid in doing their thing. But for me, when you're basically competing with yourself, as WWE is, I think they're doing pretty damn good at competing with themselves at this point. I think the structure of NXT is helping. It's, a direct... AAA league, and a lot of people like NXT more. I don't particularly like NXT more than the main roster, whatever you want to call it. But I do think that's a good thing that's developed. And 6-7 years ago, if you said NXT, people thought it was just a cheesy reality show, and then it was a cheesy segment of a reality show. And so somehow or another, they forged through with that. And I guess Triple H or whatever it works, Stephanie. Really wanted to make NXT something that people could enjoy, and they've done it successfully. So I think that shows now, because you build up these talents like, who's a big star for me? Charlotte Flair. Charlotte Flair, I think, is awesome. I think she's super athletic. I think she's attractive, and I think she's a great wrestler. I think she's obviously learned, from the best, from the Nature Boy Ric Flair, and she just does a fucking good match. As far as the actual booking, I think a lot of people get upset about certain matches. People want to be the booker. And if every single match is not won, by the wrestler they think deserves to win or whatever, then they get upset. Last year the big deal was AJ Styles didn't win a WrestleMania debut match against Jericho. Well, a year later, no one really is talking about that because we got both AJ and Jericho on the show in the opening 2 matches, and they're both doing great matches. But for me, this year, what's the big complaint? I don't know. I mean, I think that, if you liked, what's his name? Seth Rollins, well, he won his match. If Triple H didn't put himself over. Shane didn't put himself over. Vince is apparently not wrestling anymore. So there's nothing to say about that. But if you didn't like Roman Reigns being Undertaker, I can see that. But I think for 5, 6, 7 years at least, Undertaker's made his own WrestleMania decisions. So we can't really blame anyone else for anything like that. Overall, I think it's a great show. I think it was an A. I would actually, last night, having just watched Mania 33, I was thinking, yeah, this is probably a top 5 WrestleMania. I'm not even kidding. I think it's up there with, as far as in-ring action, Goldberg and Lesnar, for instance. Hard-hitting, rock'em sock'em robots. That's about as best as you're going to get out of those 2 guys. Goldberg, 49. What's Brock? 38, 40, whatever. That's about as best as you're going to get out of Lesnar and Goldberg. I think they brought it. I think some matches, like Randy and Bray and Triple H and Seth also maybe had a dip in enthusiasm just because the night's getting long. But people who complain that the show was too long, I mean, are you fucking editors now? This is a live event with a huge set, 70,000 people, a lot of cameras. You're going to need some time. So as fans, and I've tried to get into the wrestling business myself and not been, terribly successful, but I've had a little toe in there. As fans, we have to accept that it takes a lot of time. It's like the Super Bowl. You can't say, the Super Bowl should have been 35 minutes because I have other things to do. Well, what did the wrestling fans have to do last night? Obviously, we're just kind of sitting around talking about wrestling, so you don't really have big plans for most of the wrestling fans out there. Like, you had some commitment to do something. It's WrestleMania, so shut the fuck up, watch the show, and enjoy it. Not to say shut the fuck up, even you could critique all you want, but at some point, what do you want? I mean, what do you want from a wrestling show? I think they did a great job. I think, and I'm, like everyone else, I'm critical or I love WWE, whatever the fuck. But I think give them fucking the tip of the hat. They did a goddamn good show. It was a good WrestleMania, great WrestleMania. I put a fucking A. I say WrestleMania 17, 3, obviously. The first one, just because it's the first one. And there's been a lot of great ones. I mean, you go up and young, you see The Rock Hogan, but that was one match at WrestleMania 18. Um, Undertaker and Shawn and Triple H and Undertaker, those particular matches were awesome, but those particular shows, maybe not so much. WrestleMania 13, perfect example. I'm going on a rant here, but Stone Cold and Bret, WrestleMania 13, awesome fucking top match of WrestleMania that year. The rest of the show was weak, except for the six-man with Farouk and the Nation of Domination and the Legion of Doom and Shamrock, I think. So my point is, this match for match was pretty damn high. I don't think any match was a dud. I did miss the preview show, so I have to cop to that. I caught them later, but I started watching with AJ and fucking Shane. And give it up to the New Day. I mean, I thought I forgot about the goddamn Hardys. I forgot, okay? So when they came out, yeah, that was cool. Because I thought it was just going to be the New Day in the ladder match. Overall, A fucking plus Mania. Congratulations, WWE. Hall of Fame or whatever, let's just talk about Mania for now. I say that WrestleMania was a success, and for wrestling fans out there who criticize it or feel it wasn't up to their goddamn expectations, what are you looking for? Look at Crockett Cup 87. If you want to see some hard-hitting wrestling, just straight-out wrestling with no celebrities and no hype and no production values, Crockett Cup 87, If you want hardcore stuff, Barely Legal, 97. So if you don't like what's being offered now, and I hate the term, the product, but if you don't like the product, if you don't like wrestling now, if you think somehow you could be doing better, A, it's a tough business to get into, it's nearly impossible, and B, you probably would just go crazy like everybody else. Because from what I understand, the little that I've kind of flirted with this the business or whatever the fuck you want to call it, it'll crush your spirit as a person to try to be in the business. And you watch some of these people that succeed, Jim Ross, Bruce Pritchard, whatever, but you see that it's a tough business to be in for these people. So give them some credit. I think it was a great show. As a fan, I give it an A fucking plus, and I think the fans of wrestling get a C minus for being too goddamn critical and not appreciating when they have a good show. So that's Mike Messier, MikeMessier.com, WrestleMania Response. I enjoy the show. And sometimes in life, everybody, you just have to say, yeah, that was good.